Welcome back to part 3, Being Witness in the World. Lesson 4 is called Your 3-Step Formula for Miracles. And yes, miracles do happen. I experience them in my life, and I'm going to show you how it's done. Jesus, in his ministry, did not do magic, and therefore neither do we. In the gospel accounts of the multiplication of loaves, Jesus actually shows us how the reign of God is done. So if you recall, in the 7 accounts, 7, you can count them, 7 accounts of the multiplication of loaves, our first clue that this is an important lesson is that it does appear 7 times in the Gospels. But in these accounts, Jesus follows a formula. There are thousands of people, there's no food, typical situation, there's not enough to go around. What does he do? He asks the disciples, what do you have? And they say, well, not much. And he says, give me what you have. They give him what they have. He takes what little it is. He blesses God, breaks it open, gives it back to them, and says, distribute it. Very simple formula. So this is a formula that we can follow. And in fact, I have had the experience, I'm going to share it with you. It's a story that I share in my album called Free to Be Free. It's actually called The Multiplication of Blankets. And I will show you how this 3-step formula works. So I was spending an overnight at the warming center on a bitter cold night in my town. And my first chore was to distribute blankets as people come in. As guests come in for the evening, they get processed in and do the paperwork. And then they come to me and I give them a blanket. And then they go into the sleeping room and choose a mat and bed down for the night. So on this one night when I showed up, there was one bag. There wasn't a mountain of bags of blankets. There was one bag. And I said to the shift lead, I said, are there more bags of blankets, maybe in the truck or in the storage pod or along the side here? And he said, no, this is all we got, one bag of blankets, which is about 7 or 8 blankets. And we were at capacity that night, 70 guests. And so my task was to heft this big bag of blankets onto the table, open it up, empty it out, and distribute the blankets. And I knew I could give maybe 7 or 8 guests a blanket. And I did that. And when I was done, I looked at the line of people coming in, and the line was stretching out the door. And I glanced down at my side, and I noticed another black garbage bag filled with blankets. And I thought, that's odd. But I picked it up, put it on the table, opened it up, shared the blankets, and again, the line was long. I had no more blankets, and I looked down and I noticed another bag. And I knew there was no one coming in with bags of blankets because there was no room. My back was against the wall, then there was the table, then there was the line of people we were servicing, and then there was maybe a thin crowd of people, and that was it. There was nobody coming through to deliver more bags of blankets. So I got the rhythm. Empty out the bag, give away the blankets, and just trust that there's going to be another bag. There always was. And at the end, everyone, all 70 guests, had a blanket. And after this, I turned to one of the other workers and I said, did you see that? And she looked at me and said, yeah, that happens here. And I realized the formula works. I'm not just giving you a formula that you can say, oh, that's nice. I am telling you the formula works. So it's really the multiplication of love. And I actually have a track called Multiplication of Love, which you also can listen to on Spotify in my album called Living as Jesus Taught. It's the multiplication of love. That's what's really going on here. Jesus did things that would not make sense if God did not exist. This is the definition of miracle. Things that would not make sense if God did not exist. That is the definition of a miracle. So these are the 3 simple steps for miracles. Gather what you have. This might mean gathering your time, your energy, your forces, gathering what little money you might have, what few supplies you might have, what little food you might have in the cupboard to put together some sandwiches for hungry people. Gather what you have. The second step is to bless God. To bless God for what you have. The third step, simply do the next obvious thing, which may be sharing your time, sharing your presence or compassion. It might mean sharing your patience or material goods or money. Share what you have in service to the good of others. I think of my story, again, this is a recorded track on my album, Living as Jesus Taught. It's called Remembering Mama Carrie, where I shared presence, I shared compassion, I shared patience, and I shared a sandwich in service to the good of others. Listen to the story, see how easily it's done. Why is working and trusting this 3-step formula for miracles vital to your spiritual growth? Because it's your direct participation in revealing the generosity and surprise of the reign of God. It is your direct participation. It's not thinking about it. It's not reading somebody else's story. It's not reading the gospel accounts. It is your direct participation in revealing the generosity and surprise of the reign of God. And it comes through you. It flows through you. Here is your practice. You can ask yourself, when have I experienced the multiplication of time or energy or resources? Was it caring for a sick child in the middle of the night? Was it caring for a neighbor? Was it saying yes to something and then realizing I don't really have everything I need for this, but you know what, I'm going to show up anyway and do what I can. And then realizing that it all worked out perfectly anyway. What stories do you share? That's the second part. What stories can you share of your experiences? Have those stories. Be ready to share those stories at any moment, because they are the revelation of the reign of God. That's your homework. I want you to do it. And if you don't have any stories to share, work the process and then tell the stories. We will close our series on spiritual growth with the lesson on how to rise up to act in 4 simple steps. Join us.